Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Arelis Cortez, and I am the event coordinator for Turning Point Breast Cancer Rehabilitation. We're glad that you are going to take some time this morning to be with us. This is obviously a hot topic. As I said, we had a lot of people register for this. So a lot of us dealing with stress and specifically stress related with breast cancer. So this is going to be a question and answer session. So we ask that if you do have a question, please make sure you use the Q&A box, and we'll address as many as we can towards the event, towards the end of today's presentation. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Naynette King. Kennett. I always want to say Naynette King. I don't know why. I'm sorry.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that one before.
I don't know why. It's Kennett. I'm always changing your last name. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Let me put it here so I can see us. All right. So it is still good morning, everyone, and welcome to Breast Cancer and Me. I want to live stress-free. So did you want to talk about this, Arelis? Okay.
Yes, I could just briefly mention it. I'm off today. I apologize. So yes, these are what we call our socially responsible partners. These are businesses, companies, and individuals that have donated to Turning Point, create fundraisers for us. And it's because of them and others that aren't mentioned here. These are just some of them, but because of them, we're able to bring these education events to you every month free of charge. So we're always grateful for the support that Turning Point gets. Thank you, Naynette.
You have me trained well. Okay, so as you saw in the flyer, you've been diagnosed. Now what? You've completed your treatment. Now what? And so how do you address the psychosocial challenges that come with living with breast cancer? And in this event, we're going to talk about having breast cancer causes stress. When you're stressed, what can you do to cope with it? What are some mechanisms and skills and techniques? What does resiliency look like? How can you assess yourself to see what your resiliency is and how you can improve? What resources are available to reduce stress or to support you during this treatment phase or while you're as a survivor of breast cancer. And at first, I'm going to start with just some brief statistics about how important or why we're having this topic regarding stress. Of course, we all experience stress, but why is it so important for breast cancer survivors, but also let you know that you're not alone in feeling these or having these feelings or maybe feeling stressed out or overwhelmed. And so just recently, last year, more than 19 million new cancer cases were diagnosed and approximately 10 million deaths. This is worldwide. And female breast cancer was the most diagnosed. It's become the world's leading cause of death in women. It surpassed cardiovascular disease. However, the overall rate is 90% for breast cancer survivors or patients when there's early detection and early treatment. However, again, research do show there is a link between emotional stress, breast cancer, and the side effects of breast cancer treatment. And it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, which come first. So it's not clear if emotional stress causes exacerbation with breast cancer treatment or if breast cancer treatment exacerbates and causes emotional stress. But what we do know is there is a link. Also, studies suggest that perceived stress, which we'll talk about, is the degree to which situations in one's life are praised are stressful. And so we'll talk about your perception, how you perceive and understand stress versus actual stress. And it has a direct bearing on the well-being of breast cancer survivors. And I thought interesting as I've been reading and do research, it says younger women are typically perceive cancer to be more stressful than older women. And if you're a mother, then it's even worse as far as the level and the amount of stress and the emotional distress. And Some protective factors are older women, higher socioeconomic status, support in the home, and went the wrong way. What am I doing? Okay. And having support in the home. So what are some of the challenges that we're going to talk about? So first, physical problems. Although this is about stress, research also shows that breast cancer survivors after diagnosis, physical activity significantly decrease for multiple reasons. We know of because of potential inability to, but also lack of motivation to do so. And so those decrease in physical activity causes physical problems such as possible disability or illnesses. Also, there's psychological problems. There's fear. There's feeling elated and okay and happy because I'm still alive. We've got early detection. It'll be okay. And then there's uncertainty. What now? What's going to happen? How am I going to get through this? So you want to be aware, and we're going to talk about some of the stressors and what that looks like. Also, challenges is with family issues and social concerns. Oftentimes people think the female has cancer or the female has just been diagnosed. And so as survivors, research show you're often figuring out, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through this? And it's a family issue. When there's a significant other, there's children, there's family, and immediate friends and family who are around you involved, it impacts everyone. It doesn't just impact the actual person. And so being able to have support, being able to have conversation, being able to be honest and open about how you're feeling doing this are all protective factors that if they're not in place or you don't have them, it becomes a psychosocial challenge for you. Being out, socializing, especially now with COVID, fear of having a lower immune system and so susceptible to other diseases such as COVID or flu or anything that you can get because of a suppressed immune system. So not being able to get out. And I also read an article related to COVID that in breast cancer survivors, that if you're able to get out, physical activity, smell the air, get the wind on your face, look at the greenery, those things are also ways to increase or have protective factors or decrease your stress. And then there's the issue or concerns that you may have regarding working or insurance. Research shows that, you're not able to work or for a certain amount of time, and then maybe your insurance is not paying for the treatment that you may have been recommended by the doctor, or maybe some treatment that you have researched and you want. And so, or because you're not able to work, you may not have the type of insurance that you had prior to. So these are all concerns and issues that cause stress or worry. And then having supportive care access. What I'm saying about that is being able to get to the doctor's appointment when you go, understanding, remembering, being able to talk to family and friends about what happened, conceptualizing. You get a lot of information. It comes to you and you hear it, you're going through it. But if you don't have the support of, when I was there 2 weeks ago, this is what they said, and I'm going in a month, and what does this mean? And having support to understand and navigate through the process of treatment and afterwards. And at the end, see you in 6 months, see you in a year. What does that mean? What does that look like? And some people don't even have access. And so that's another stressor, how there's a decrease or how you don't have adequate support care services or access can cause stress. And then finally, fear of recurrence. I hear that so often. I think as survivors, we minimize, or it's minimized on the fear of recurrence. It's like, I'm appreciative, I'm alive, I'm glad the treatment went well. And then when the question is, what's the fear? And it's often, will it come back? Is it still here? I look the same because I didn't get a mastectomy, so is it still there? Or I have a mastectomy, but I feel like they didn't get it all. not trusting or faith or believing in what the doctor said because of fear. And so that's another stressor. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So now what? Now that these stressors, and what I've seen or some things that I've heard is everyone I know who had breast cancer either died from it or had a recurrence. And so thinking about that constantly, consistently, every day after getting the diagnosis, stressful, which then turns into distress, which can turn into anxiety, which can turn into depression. And as you see how I can go on and on and on. Or in my mind, hearing I had breast cancer equal death. I wasn't just emotional, I was terrified. So now every day living in fear, living with the unknown, living with what is going to happen. And that was a mother who had that statement, because she was terrified of what she was going to tell her kids, how she was going to talk to her kids. What were they thinking? How were they feeling? And then I also hear my life has changed. It won't ever be the same. And so I want you to remember, kind of think about these statements or statements that you have had after the now what do I do? Because one of the coping mechanisms we're going to talk about is mindfulness and understanding what that looks like. And one of mindfulness is you can have two things happen at the same time. So yes, you can have cancer, but you can also have a happy life. And so oftentimes when we think of a bad thing, we automatically think of something good or bad, or bad and bad. But I want you to think about two things can happen. So just because you have a diagnosis doesn't mean you can't thrive and have a enhanced or optimal quality of life. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay. Did I go? I think I'm going too fast. Sorry about that. There we go. So what is stress? A state of mental tension and worry caused by problems in your life, work, etc. Something that causes strong feelings of worry or anxiety. Physical force or pressure. A physical, chemical, or emotional factor that causes bodily or mental tension and may be a factor in disease causation. Sorry about that. So as you can see, stress is something that we experience, something that we go through, but wellness comes when we respond. How we respond, how we cope is when we get well, when wellness is available. So I want you to think, I think one of the myths is that we don't want to experience stress or we don't want anxiety. It's natural. It's a part of life. It's how we cope with it that makes a difference if we're going to experience stress, distress, or if we're going to experience eustress. Distress is chronic stress over time, and eustress is just the opposite, having a better quality of life. Okay, let's try this. It keeps going. I don't know what's going on. Let me go down here, make it easy. Do we have questions? Do we have any questions?
Questions yet, but someone just said, no worries, my dog is interrupting too.
Okay. So when we talk about stress, that's again something that's happened, something that we've experienced, but then there's perceived stress. And it's how you, again, experience, perceive a stressful event. So when you think about, when we're talking about breast cancer and research, they're looking at the perceive, how one's perception about a stressful event or a stressful situation. And depression and high perceived stress is linked to impairments and regulating emotions. And that's what we're going to talk about, because one of the top coping or number one coping mechanisms for stress with breast cancer survivors is mindfulness. And so mindfulness involves the ability to regulate your emotions. And studies show that many survivors report significant lower levels of mental, emotional, physical, and social function than those who are similar ages and matched, than their peers who are similar, same age and gender. And then there's a research that was done with women with recurrent breast cancer. and they experience serious impairments in their functional, physical, and emotional well-being. There was another study that 42% of women blame themselves for having breast cancer or its recurrence. So let's just think about that. 42% of the women believe it's their fault. Some, it could be consciously or subconsciously. And so if you're, again, walking around experiencing the world, going out, and you believe that potentially this is your fault, or there's something you could have done differently, or something you may have missed, and how didn't you catch that? And maybe you should have went to the doctor sooner. Maybe you should have not missed that test, or all of these things, in addition to the stress, in addition to the treatment, all of this is happening. It's going to increase stress levels, and again, move to distress. But as I stated, past studies show that mindfulness interventions, it reduces distress by improving emotional regulation, because it's helping you understand, learn how we can alter your experience and express your emotions. It helps with emotional regulation. Because when you're distressed, oftentimes there's ruminating thoughts. And when I say ruminating thoughts, it's kind of what I just discussed now. Walking around, did I do something? Should I have went to the doctor? Can I eat this? Can I go here? Do I need, and if I don't, will it cause this? If I do, will it help me? Maybe I shouldn't, but if I don't do, so those are all considered ruminating thoughts. And when you're unable to control those thoughts, it causes you to be emotionally dysregulated. Then there's fear, and there's anxiety, then there's worry, there's feeling overwhelmed, there's frustration. And so mindfulness interventions teaches you how to be aware of those thoughts, be mindful of how and what those thoughts and how you're experiencing them in your body physiologically, what that feels like, what it looks like. And then begin to think about altering ways to view that experience, and to be able to put a name it, and tame the emotion. And so that's the goal with with mindfulness. And mindfulness, people always think about meditation all the time. And it's not, mindfulness is not all meditation. Yes, it's a part of it, meaning you can do yoga, you can meditate, there's art, there's music, there's mindfulness activities. But when you're thinking about actually engaging in mindfulness, it requires you to take some steps and to be present. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. I don't know what's going on here. Okay. This is ridiculous. Okay, there. So in this, what I like for us to do is to take a moment, and so there's the perceived stress scale. And what it is, it's a global measurement tool that measures, according to the degree of your life circumstances, how you view, how you're handling stressful events over the past 4 weeks. So in the chat, there's a link that's called the perceived stress scale. If you could take a minute and complete that. If you don't have access or have questions, please let us know, but it should be a link and it says perceived stress scale. And I am going to stop sharing. But before, higher scores have been associated with increased susceptibility to illness and greater vulnerability to depressive symptoms or negative affect in response to stressful events. And so we're going to talk about how we can lower the score. So if you can take a moment, let me pause sharing. Oh, let me go back to share. Give you option to do a new share. Oh, where did it go? Let me see here. Okay, so trying to my screen, but it's not working. Do you all see it?
We just see the your presentation, your PowerPoint presentation. I can try to pull it up if you want me to and share it.
Can you? I should be able to. Let me see. Here it is. I have it right here.
You got it?
Yeah. So here's the perceived stress scale. And so what I want you to do is within the last 4 weeks, think about how often have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly. In the last month, how often have you felt that you were unable to control the important things in your life? How often have you felt nervous and stressed? Felt confident? How often have you felt confident about your ability to handle your personal problems? How often have you felt that things were going your way? How often that you found you could not cope with all the things that you had to do? How often have you been able to control irritations in your life? How often have you felt that you were on top of things? And then how often have you been angered because of things that happened that were outside of your control? How often have you felt difficulties were piling up so high that you cannot overcome them? So if you can put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I believe it's 4, 5, 7, and 8, you're going to reverse the score. You're going to add it up. So if you put 0 for 4, 5, 7, and 8, it really is a 4. If you put 1, it's really a 3, and then 2 is the same, and then add it up. And so here's what the scores are. So considerably low stress is 0 to 13. Moderate stress, 14 to 26, and high perception of high stress is 27 to 40. So if you think about stress, the question I want you to think about as we continue on is how can you get it lowered? Low stress is normal. So you probably won't ever get a no stress, even though it has 0, but none at all. But if you think about if you have moderate or perceive, how do you lower that number to the one below it? So if you're moderate, how do you get to lower? And if you have high perceived stress, how do you reduce it to moderate? And so we're going to talk about some mindful techniques. And then I want you to think about, if you look at this scale, a lot of the questions are related to things that are out of your control. And oftentimes we're trying to control things that we have no control over, and it causes us frustration. And when you think about cancer, you have no control over that. You receive the diagnosis. What you have control over is how you respond to the diagnosis, how you respond to your thoughts and feelings as you go through the treatment. You have no control over, you can share with the doctors what course of treatment, but once you have that treatment, you have no control of what the side effects are going to do. And I often say, if the doctors say don't eat this or eat or do activity or do these things, unless you are doing the exact opposite of what they're saying, you still have no control, because this is your own personal journey that you're going through. And so what you experience, it may align with what research or what doctors say, and then it may not. You may be an exception. So I don't want you to think, okay, this is what often is thought is that, okay, did I do something? Those start the ruminating thoughts. Did I do something? Could I have done something differently? Did I do all that I need to do? Did the doctors tell me everything? Well, let me look on the internet and see what's happening. Oh, well, that person didn't do this. Well, their journey was different. And so again, there's the ruminating thoughts that then what produces types of feelings of fear, feelings of scared, feelings of whatever, anger, sadness, and then causes you to respond a certain way, either shut down or feel depressed or be anxious. And so mindfulness helps you with regulating those emotions, understanding what they are, so that when the ruminating thoughts begin, you can be present, name it, rehearse different ways to experience it, and then move forward. So let me stop sharing.
Hey, Naynette. As you do that, someone just asked, can you repeat the scale answers? What numbers equal?
Okay. Let me go back out and bring it up again. Can you all see the screen? No?
Not yet.
Okay, let me.
Yep.
Okay, so here they are. 0 to 13 would be low stress, 14 to 26 is moderate stress, and 27 to 40 is high stress.
And we'll be sharing this afterwards with all those that registered. So you'll get a link to this PDF.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not at the moment.
All right. So again, when you think about stress, distress is extreme anxiety, sorrow and pain. Stress is a feeling of anxiety or pressure, and then positive stress, preparing for a vacation and the stress that comes along with it, preparing for an event, and the stress that comes along with it are examples of positive stress. So when we think about emotions, everyone has them. So feelings, emotions, oftentimes I hear a lot, I was physically prepared and all these things happen physically, but emotionally, I don't know what this was. I don't know what hit me. I wasn't prepared for this emotionally. And what I want you to think about is with the emotions, they don't go away. So as much as we try to avoid them, bury them, distract ourselves, suppress them, they don't go. We do those things, but they're still there. And so our behaviors, our thoughts, all surrounded by those emotions. And what I want you to understand is whatever you're feeling emotionally, there's no right or wrong way to feel. Oftentimes you get responses or feedback from family and friends of, oh, you'll be okay in time, or you're done with that part. You finished treatment. You should feel better now. You have your hair back. So you're okay now, right? And oftentimes I'm hearing the response is always yes, or I am okay and I'm good. In reality, you're not. And so when you deny yourself the opportunity, or you deny yourself to be present and share, you're just bearing those emotions. They're not going away. You just didn't talk about them at that time. And so often you're your worst critic, and that's something you don't want to do. I don't want to make them feel a certain way. I don't want to share how I'm feeling because they may be sad. I'm already dealing with this. This is enough for the family. I don't want them to now have to deal with my feelings. I don't want to share with coworkers or talk about it because I'm at work. And there's ways of sharing and talking without disclosing and feeling like you're just being vulnerable, but disclosing in a safe way so that you don't feel burden, or you don't feel pressure, or you don't feel that you want to protect them and their feelings, but you're protecting yourself. So again, don't be your worst critic. Be kind to yourself. Actually, I would like for you to be kinder to yourself during this time. Engage in self-care. Engage in things that you enjoy doing. It's not selfish, it's required. You cannot give from an empty cup. So you have to do things, and you have to be even more intentional because of the treatment and because of things that you're experiencing. Don't predict the worst by getting ahead of yourself. Oftentimes there's anxiety or fear about going to the doctors, and the doctor's visit or your next appointment is not for another 3 weeks or 6 months or 2 months. But yet every day until that day, you're worrying about it. Again, anxiety, or as I've said before in previous events, educational, actually the last one, I think it was on anxiety. Anxiety is all future oriented. You're worrying about something in the future, the what if that, again, you have no control over. What you have control over is right now in the present. You cannot change what happened in the past. You cannot predict what's going to happen in front of you. But what you can do is be present and take care of yourself in the now. I have a sign in my office that says, stop looking back. That's not where you're going. And so you want to keep that in mind, because both situations can be overwhelming. Grieving and loss, thinking about who you were prior to breast cancer, then worried and anxious about who you will become as a result of being a survivor. All of that is not important if right now you are not focused on who you are today as a survivor. And in doing that, in order to be present, you have to be aware of your emotions, your thoughts, and your bodily sensations to return yourself to optimum functioning. That's the goal, is to live and to thrive and not survive. When you hear yes, it's cancer, you have the diagnosis. When you're going through treatment, all of those things, you're in survival mode. You're just trying to get through this and survive. But the goal is not to always be in survival mode. Our bodies are not geared for that. They're going to break down. It's going to break down either physically or emotionally. So the goal is to get to optimal level of functioning. And only you can decide what that looks like. No one else. You know emotionally what works for you. You know emotionally when you're just not feeling your best. You know when you're having positive thoughts, positive sensations in your body. You know when you're not. So being present, being aware is what you will do, and what's required is what you need to do is to be mindful. And this is one I love. Don't distract yourself with shoulds. I should be better. I should not have done that. I should have went and got a mammogram during COVID. I should have, should is just putting judgments and assumptions on things that are not necessary. They're causing you to have expectations that are not realistic, because when you are not meeting the shoulds, then you begin to feel like you failed at something. You're disappointment. You didn't do something right. So you want to distract yourself and not use should. And finally, you want to be mindful of how you feel and what you want in your life currently. I can't help you. Your husband can't help you. Your wife can't help you. Your kids can't help you. Your co-workers, TurningPoint, nobody can help you unless you tell us what you actually want, what is important to you. And so in order to do that, it requires you, again, to be present in the now. Because when we ask you, what do you currently want at this moment in time? What do you need to live optimally? We're not asking about in the future when you go to the doctor and if this happens and once this happens. We're saying today in the present, what do you need? And so being mindful of how you feel and what you need at this time in your life is important. So what are some effective coping mechanisms? So effective coping equals balance. That's just it. We want to have balance. It's not about the event or the situation, but it's how you respond to it, what you think, how you feel, and what you do. If you have negative thoughts, you have negative feelings, and it responds in negative ways. The behaviors are negative. And when I say negative, they're not optimally things that you would do that will allow you to live a happy or a quality of life. And that's ultimately the goal. You can be afraid and hopeful at the same time. They do coexist together. And so often it's like, I'm afraid. And so there's despair, there's frustration, there's overwhelm. But no, you can be afraid of what's to come, what you're experiencing, but also hopeful that things will get better, that as long as you remain present in the moment over time, that things can get better. And so mindful-based interventions, they help to reduce depressive symptoms and stress in cancer survivors, as well as other populations. And that's what we're going to focus on. Again, physical activity. If you notice, all of your physical therapists, if you're capable and able, they're asking you to get out and walk. It just improves. It has serotonin, different things in the brain that triggers and have you to feel better. So physical activity, if you can do it moderately based on your physical capabilities, and not push yourself so much that the next day you're just drained and then feel, oh, I should have never, then it's I should have never done that. Maybe I should have did it differently. So not that. If you notice, it's always just walk. Sometimes you're not able to walk too far, walking in the house, walking to the end of the street and walking back. Because as I stated, there's research to show just being out in nature, especially with COVID, has helped to reduce stress and help decrease psychological symptoms and problems for breast cancer survivors. Again, having social support. Also support groups. There's a research that individuals who participate in support groups over time, again, had lower distress as a cancer survivor. Also individual therapy. Getting help is also is effective coping. If it's just too much for you, it's too overwhelming, that's what individual therapy is for. I hear a lot when I say, well, what made you come see me now? It's just too much for my family. I think I'm tired of talking to my family and friends about it. And that's okay. Realizing that you need help, reaching out for help and getting the support you need is what's important. So social support is another top protective factors for those individuals who are experiencing stress. And having positive relationships. This is a very stressful time, stress for not just you, but again, family members, but maintaining a positive relationship with those and recognizing those relationships that are not positive and letting them go. You don't need permission to end a relationship that's not a positive one. You let it go. Because remember, it's about taking care of yourself and doing what you need for yourself at this time so that you can thrive and not survive. And so if you're dealing or having unhealthy relationships, it's constantly causing you to be in defense and in survival mode. And that's not going to help you decrease your distress. So the page here is just because for citation, I have to put that there. So let's talk about some actual skills that you can actually do. So as I stated, mindful skills, when we talk about these interventions, mindfulness is about paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. Oftentimes when you heard that you're diagnosed or treatment is over, see you in 6 months, you probably didn't hear anything else after that. Probably start having thoughts, feelings, rumination of thoughts, irrational thoughts, maybe some distorted thoughts, just a lot happening, started feeling a certain way, probably got nervous, probably started sweating. A lot of things happened which caused you not to pay attention. So you probably missed some other things that were important. So being mindful is about paying attention. And in order to do that, you have to be present. It's very hard to do, even though I might be calm in saying it and saying it's possible. It's very challenging because we are oftentimes thinking about how we're going to respond and do something in the future, or what we should have done in the past, or what we're going to cook later, or where we're going to go tomorrow, or where did we just come from? Who did I just see? Did I meet the right? All of these things happen in life. But in order to be able to regulate emotions, understand what's happening, you have to be mindful. And mindfulness is about being present. You cannot be mindful if you're thinking ahead or behind or in the past. You want to observe and describe your internal and external experiences. So internal are your feelings, your thoughts, and your sensations. What are your feelings? What are your thoughts? What are your bodily sensations? And when I say bodily sensations, sweating, heart palpitation, it's happening. There's nothing you can do about it. You cannot just stop you from breathing fast. You cannot just stop your heart from racing when you hear or you're overwhelmed and anxious. but you can be mindful of what's happening so that you can name it, so that you can tame it, but you cannot avoid it. Where externally, sight, what do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you feel? When you heard, or when they said it's over, I know there's a bell that rings when you're done with radiation, or you're done with chemo. Be mindful of what does that mean. When you heard that bell, what did that say to you? What was your feelings? What was your thoughts? What did your body do? Again, observing and describing these experiences. And this is the biggest one. Do not add any unproven assumptions or judgments as you recognize and label your senses through your observation. What do I mean by that? Judgments are emotionally charged personal opinions added to facts. That's all they are. And so when I'm saying that is, when we think about assumptions and judgments about facts, what we're doing is thinking about it, either it's good, it's bad, it's right, or it's wrong. This should not be happening to me. Cancer is unfair. This is my fault. I should have had more healthy habits. Those are all assumptions and judgments. And these are all your personal opinion about some things that is true. Yes, you have cancer, but it doesn't have anything to, it does not necessarily have anything to do with how you were eating. And it's unfair. That's your opinion. So again, you want to think about, it's about how you are judging or making these assumptions that then causes you to respond in a negative way or overwhelming way. Make sure I didn't go. Okay. Okay, so how do you regulate your emotions? So first, you want to allow yourself to be aware of how you're feeling. So again, that goes back to being present. Be aware of how you're actually feeling in the moment: sad, angry, frustrated, upset. Then you want to pause and observe your emotional experience. Pay attention to where and how the feeling is expressed in your body. Notice what your thoughts are. So as I gave an example, pay attention to where and how the feeling is expressed in your body. So is it increased heart rate, rapid breathing, sweaty palms, fidgety? What are your thoughts associated with that? Then describe the feeling, describe what the experience is by naming the emotion you wish to control. So as you're having these bodily feelings and you're feeling overwhelmed, you're sad, you're angry, name it. Name what you want to get control over. Label the prompting event. What caused this? What was the stressor? Actually hearing it, actually thinking about what life is going to be now that you have it, actually thinking about how you're going to survive after treatment. Think about and label what the actual event that has caused you the stress. And again, identify physical reactions and any judgments that you have about the event. Are you thinking that something you could do, you should do, you need not do? Is it assumption or is it real? Is it a fact? Is it just your opinion that you've placed on a fact? Then you want to check it. Are your ideas verified? Is this something that is accurate, that you would actually feel this way? Sometimes you think, I'm never going to be the same. Is that actually a fact? Is that verifiable? Is it true that you will never be the same? And is it physically you're saying or emotionally? And there are times when it may be true. Physically, you will not be the same. But what does that mean? How do you respond to that? And so emotionally, you want to think about if you will never, you cannot say that you don't know that you will never be the same, because if you're present, then what you're thinking about is right now, not thinking about or fear of in the future or how you're going to cope. Because oftentimes, if you check the fact and you think about it, you're assuming some sort of threat, something catastrophic, something bad. And if you are, think about and start naming and assessing the likelihood of it actually happening. It may or it may not. And so think about, is this possible? Is this plausible? Can this actually happen? And then you're going to have a wise mind. Does the emotion or the intensity actually fit the facts? Am I overthinking this, or am I feeling, is it really not as bad as I might think it is? Because you may have thought, hearing the diagnosis, you were going to get maybe just chemo and no other actual surgery. Or you may have thought you are going to have a lobectomy, then you had to have a mastectomy. And so does the emotion or intensity actually fit the facts? Consider other possible perspectives. Think about other ways you can view this, other ways emotionally you can think about, and in a positive way, because again, remember, as I said, we're always our worst critics and we're always thinking the worst. You want to begin to think positively and talk to yourself about it. Decide whether it's in your interest to express or act on the emotion. So again, even though you are angry, even though you're sad, you have made the choice. That's what you do have control on over, is how are you going to respond to that emotion? Are you going to lash out at others? Are you going to shut down? Are you going to deny yourself support that you may or may not need? How do you choose, or how are you planning to act out on that emotion? And then we're going to talk about fear and coping ahead. So when I think about that, I'm addressing stress and anxiety related to fear and how to cope with moving forward. So again, you want to think about describing the specific situation that is likely to prompt the distress. And it's probably recurrence. If you think ahead, that's probably the most fearful thing that you can experience for those who have ended treatment, those who maybe just got the diagnosis. The fear could be actually going through treatment. So think about what is prompting this distress. Then name the threat of that situation. Is it the actual treatment? Is it the fear of dying? Is it the fear of the treatment is not going to be successful? Because that's another, as I stated before, women survivors blame themselves when things don't go well. Either the doctor didn't tell the truth and they didn't give me all the information, or I must have done something wrong. So think about and name the threat in the situation. And remember, check the facts. Is it true, or are these assumptions and judgments that you're placing on it? And then imagine the situation in your mind as vividly as possible. Rehearse coping effectively. And you want to think about ways to how you can mitigate, resolve, or cope in a positive way, and thinking positively about plausible options and not negatively about what should, could, or may happen. And then practice relaxation after rehearsing. And so there's some different types of relaxation techniques. And one is paced breathing, and another one is called paired muscle relaxation. And so I'm just going to go through paced breathing. So what you will do is you'll slow down your pace of breathing to an average of 5 or 6 breaths per minute. You'll try to breathe deeply from your abdomen. Very challenging. We always breathe in here. Inhale to a slow count of 4. Pause and try to exhale to count of 6 or possible 8 and repeat. So that's an and then another one is paired muscle relaxation. Again, inhale as you stiffen and tighten your muscles, but not so much as to cause a cramp. Pay attention to the tension in your body for 4 to 5 seconds. Exhale for 6 to 7 seconds. While softening the tension, say the word relax in your mind as you slump like a rag doll. And then you can bring the attention to different parts of your body. So you can bring it to your face, wrinkle your forced head and let it go. Squeeze your eyes tightly and then relax. Fur or your brows and then soften. Scrunch your cheeks, nose tightly and then relax. You can grind your teeth and let your whole mouth and jaw slack with tongue relaxed and your teeth slightly apart. And you can pucker your lips, then let the concern of your lips relax and turn up and have a half smile, calm facial expression. And then you can do it in your arms, your hands, your torso, your feet, different ways in that torso, legs, and feet. Again, hold your stomach in tightly. Squeeze your buttocks together, then soften. Tense your thighs and calves, then release. Flex your ankles, curl your toes, and then let them slacken. Again, this is requiring you to be present, to be mindful of what your body is doing, to understand how your body is responding to stress and relax, and allowing you to be able to name what it is that you're feeling. So those are a couple of them. And then finally, there is a resiliency quiz. And so in order to survive, to no longer survive, but to begin thriving, there has to be resiliency. How you bounce back from adversity. How do you survive through something that's stressful, overwhelming? And so again, I'll continue to say, physical activity is important for cancer survivors' quality of life, physical functioning, mental affect, and long-term health outcomes. And so if you can increase, enhance, improve, return to any physical activity, it helps with mind, body, and spirit. It's linked to improved quality of life. And older survivors, again, with adequate social support and higher socioeconomic, have lower perceived stress. So these are some resiliency and protective factors that individual can have prior to even being diagnosed. And research shows those who do not have a higher susceptibility of experiencing depression or anxiety. And so here's a resiliency quiz, which I'm going to share. Where is it? Okay. Oops. And show. Okay. So here's the resiliency quiz. I'm not going to ask you to do it, but I just want you to look at it and think about where do you fit on here? How is your resiliency? And it's to assess and strengthen the resiliency condition. So if you realize that resiliency, there's a resiliency wheel. If you realize that it's not that strong, then this quiz provides options and ways to increase. So people bounce back from tragedy, trauma, risk, and stress by having the following protective conditions in your life. More times you answer yes below, the greater chance you can bounce back from your life's problems with more power and more smarts. And doing that is a sure way to increase your self-esteem. And so it looks at your caring and your support. You treat yourself with kindness. Remember, I said be kinder to yourself. You have social support. Remember, involved with friends and family. High expectations for success. You have several people who let you know and believe you have the ability to succeed. You have the ability to do well during this treatment. You get the message you can succeed. You believe in yourself most of the time, even when you encounter difficulties. Opportunity for meaningful participation, volunteering, positive bonds. Remember, I said relationships is very positive ones is important, and negative ones, you don't need permission to let them go. Clear and consistent boundaries. Being able to say no. Most of our family and friends members have clear boundaries, which include respect, personal autonomy, both in giving and receiving. You experience clear, consistent expectations. You maintain healthy boundaries by standing up for yourself, not letting others take advantage, but saying no when you need to, but also saying yes and when you need help. That's another thing. You don't have to be strong and continue to take care of everyone and everybody. Right now, it's taking care of you, getting you healthy, happy, so that you can thrive and have a better quality of life. Not making sure everyone else is together, because if you're not together, they're not together. I've always seen that patients will say, well, my family is this, or my kids feel this way, and it's my fault, and I don't want. But if they see you in good spirits, if they see you being present, enjoying current moments, having fun times, then they will be happy for you. I always say, if any of you have seen me individually or met me, When you get on the plane and it's time to put the face mask or the oxygen on, they do not say put the oxygen on your kids or the person next to you. They say put it on yourself first and then help anyone next to you. Take care of yourself, set boundaries. Life skills, you set goals and stick to them. And so again, people who overcome difficulties draw upon internal qualities within themselves. And then here's some building factors or some resiliency builders. And so what you can do is, what I'd like for you, if you do get a chance to fill this out, is to kind of put the top three. You can put the top three things that you think should add to your personal repertoire. Think about how you can best apply these builders to your current problems, stressors, or crises right now. Relationships, service, humor. Having a good sense of humor is important. Inner direction, perceptiveness, independence, positive view, flexibility, self-motivating, self-worth, spirituality, being creative, doing things that you enjoy. And you can be your best self. You can best help yourself or someone else when you are more resilient by doing these things. Communicating a positive attitude, focusing on your strengths more than problems and weaknesses, and providing yourself or another the conditions listed in part 1. All of these things. Okay. Go back. And finally, get you all, there's some resources. So breastcancer.org provide resources to survivor, National Coalition for Cancer Survivorship, again, resources and support. Cancer Hope Network is another one. Children's Lives includes moments of bravery. These are resources for children who have a loved one who's diagnosed with cancer, as well as Kids Cope. Kids Cope is online resources. And then if you have family members who would like resources, there's the Family Caregiver Alliance and the National Alliance for Caregiving. And then finally, not last but most important, you have TurningPoint. You have the PTs, you have myself, you have the nutritionist, you have the massage therapist. Again, addressing holistically all of what the resources and things that are needed. Remember, I talked about physical access, emotional, psychological, self-care, that's the massage, eating is taking care. All of those things that we've said are psychological challenges. You have those resources available to support you at TurningPoint. That's it.
Oh. Thank you so much, Naynette. We appreciate it.
Okay, let me see. Any questions?
No questions, just people saying thank you and then asking for a copy of today's information, which I will send that out later today. We're actually out of time. It's 12:01, but we appreciate it so much. It was a lot to cover, great information. And this is also being recorded and it will get posted shortly after we log off today. It will get posted on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. And that'll be included in the email that goes out to all those that registered. So thank you for your time today. As many of you know, TurningPoint is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are appreciative that we can, because of the support of the community, that we can continue to bring this information to you free of charge. Like Naynette said, we are here. If you need any of our services, please reach out to us. And if you would like to make a small donation, a big donation for just out of gratitude for today's event, you can just go to myturningpoint.org and donate whatever your heart compels you to. We are so thankful again for your time today and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye.